My college graduation day was one of the worst moments of my life. I was overwhelmed, anxious, and heartbroken. The biggest question I kept thinking to myself, what am I supposed to do now? One thing was for certain, I was not going to listen to the advice from my career service advisors, which were telling me, take whatever job you can get right out of college. It's all about the experience. Thanks, but no thanks, I thought to myself. I had finished a college internship that year prior, and I was hit by this brick wall. Everything that I thought I wanted to do was actually the complete opposite of what I really wanted out of my life. To me, the vision was clear going into college, get a diploma, drive a nice BMW, wear a nice suit every day, climb the corporate ladder, buy myself a Rolex at some point. But I got a taste of the real world during that internship, and man, it was depressing. People complaining that it was only Monday, water cooler talk, counting down the days until the weekend. It wasn't an atmosphere that made me feel good. So I thought to myself, let's go find plan B. After graduating, I was still unclear what I was going to do next. I started flipping stuff on Craigslist. I began working for my uncle part time at his garden center. And get this, the garden center was also the first place that I started working at the age of 12. I was back to where it all started for me, where I learned the value of a dollar bill. There was a moment when I thought, I have a college diploma in my pocket. How did I end up back here? What did I do wrong? After months of considering it, I felt like there was no better time than now to try and test ideas that were coming to mind. I was a graduate from Bentley University, a top business school in Boston. So starting my own venture would be easy, right? Inspired by Lewis Howes and his podcast, The School of Greatness, I decided to launch my own podcast. I had no idea what I wanted to do after college. I saw friends around me that were building their creative careers. One was a musician, a clothing designer, a photographer, a model, etc. I myself was unclear on what my passion or purpose was. So I thought, why not create a podcast that focused on unfolding the stories of passionate people? If I'm unsure of what mine is, why not talk to those that do know theirs and ask them how they figured it out? And that's how Purpose in the Youth podcast was born. Now I knew I wasn't going to make bank hosting the show off the rip, and I needed a way to pay the bills while funding my career. I went to my parents and I told them we needed to talk. I was sure this was what every parent dreams of hearing from their child after finishing up college. Mom and dad, I've decided I'm not going to get a job. I'm launching a podcast and I want to see where it takes me. Silence. To my surprise, there was no anger or disappointment in their response. The only thing that they wanted more clarity on was, what's a podcast? They were happy to see me following my dreams, but reminded me that my college loans were kicking in. I had 6 months till the $100,000 plus debt came knocking. They weren't going to float me any cash, and I didn't expect them to either. It's game time, I thought to myself. No more bullshitting around, no more partying on the weekends, no more spending money without intention. It's time to get serious. And around that time, my buddy John, who I graduated with, called me. He had an extra room available at the house that he was subletting in Boston for the summer. And he told me I could have a room in it for the next 6 weeks for $1,000 total. After living back at home for 2 months, not seeing any traction, I knew I had to be where the action was. And I knew it was time to go back to Beantown. During college, I had started driving for Uber part-time to make some side cash. I was averaging 20 to 30 bucks an hour and was working on my own time. This was a college kid's dream. Enough money to pay for beers and my lifestyle expenses, so sign me up. It was perfect. I had seen how easy it was being able to turn on and off the app whenever I wanted to make money. I had even spent the entire summer of my junior year driving full-time in the city, and I loved it. It gave me a taste of what it felt like to be in complete control of my time, and I wanted more of it. This is where the stars started to come to alignment. What if I kept driving Uber full time while building the podcast? I would make enough money to pay for rent, car loan, car insurance, food, college loans, etc. I'd even have enough left over to invest into my business. But the real value and what I could not put a dollar sign on was this. I could work when I wanted for as long as I wanted, and nobody was going to be my boss. A light bulb moment. I knew running a podcast wasn't going to be easy. I was the new kid on the block, and I was going to have to prove to myself and to the world what I had to offer. I wanted to be flexible and work around people's schedule and record based on when it worked best for them. And so it began. This was August of 2016, and I figured I'd keep doing this process until I found a way to make money from the podcast. Can't be that hard, can it? Little did I know, I would go on to spend the next 3.5 years driving for the platform, racking up a total of 19,002 total rides. During that time, I moved from Boston to Los Angeles. I built the podcast to over 150 plus guests, and I found what I was looking for, my passion. It was doing exactly what I was already doing, documenting and sharing my experiences, thoughts, and perspective with the world. So, what allowed me to stop driving Uber full time? One night after driving, pulled out my phone and opened up my Instagram to post a story update on how the day went. This wasn't unusual for me. I was always sharing the behind the scenes of the podcaster by day, Uber driver by night lifestyle. I was burnt out from driving for the platform. I was taking a temporary pause with purpose in the youth. I was ready, anxious, and eager for something new. I posted this online for everyone to see. Hold me to it. By the top of 2020, I'm done driving for Uber. I know the value I can bring to the world, and I'm not maximizing it right now. I don't know what the next step is, but I will find a way. For context, this was October of 2019. So I was giving myself 3 months to find the next step. Not a whole lot of time, but I was desperate. What I didn't know was that my life was about to take a massive turn for the better. The next morning, I woke up from a DM from a guy by the name of Brandon Cohen. I encourage you to Google him. Brandon was the founder of a company by the name of Liquid IV. Have you ever heard of it? Back then, it was a small SoCal-based company that was making waves. Now that company is $1 billion business, so a lot has changed. Brandon was a past guest of the podcast who I had met the year prior, and we stayed in contact. We congratulated each other on our wins and encouraged one another from afar. That was it. There was no asks, there was no favors, there was nothing. But to my surprise, when I read that DM from Brandon the next day, he asked if I was free to get on a call that week. I'm shocked. Why does Brandon want to get on a call with me? Doesn't he have a business to run, grow, and focus on? I went back and saw that he had viewed my story from the night before. Does he know of an opportunity that could be of interest to me? There's one way to find out. A few days later, we jumped on a call. Brandon had just got back a few days ago from recording a podcast with Gary Vee in New York City. No biggie, right? I was only Gary's biggest fan, so I tried to play it cool on the phone and acted like this was normal for us to be having this conversation about Gary Vee. Finally, we got down to it, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Brandon had a full-time creative opportunity and was looking for someone to fill the role, and the pay was 6 figures. He saw my post about wanting to change things up and thought I may be a good fit. There'd be no interview that would be necessary. He told me that the job was mine if I wanted it. I knew while he was explaining the role that I wanted and needed it. See, Brandon was the type of guy that even if he was selling rocks on the side of the road, you wanted to be part of it. His passion was infectious, and I wanted to be around that type of energy. 2 weeks later, I walked in the door for my first day, and I've been with Liquid IV ever since. At the time of writing and recording this script, I surpassed 4 years with them. From being the 23rd employee to now near 180 plus, it has been quite the ride, and I'm forever grateful to work with them. But the story doesn't stop here, ladies and gentlemen, so please buckle up. I'm a true believer that everything happens for a reason. I needed to move on from Uber. I needed to put my podcast on pause. I needed some financial security so I could think clear. My Uber life was worrying about how much money I could make per ride every single day, and it became mentally exhausting. $5 here, $3 there, $18 here. The financial security gave me the stillness and freedom, which was exactly what I needed. I spent the next 8 months slowing down and reflecting what the journey had been like the last few years. I've been so focused on work, and more work that I lost track of other areas of my life as well. Life experiences, dating, hobbies, you name it. I gave myself permission to explore. I wanted to follow my curiosity and see what would come up during my free time outside of Liquid IV. What was clear was that I felt like I lost my identity and voice since I had stopped the podcast. This is when chapter 2.0 was born of my podcast career, and I launched my second and current podcast, It's the Bearded Man. Now that I was certain that I wanted to be in the digital world as a creator, I knew I needed to hit the reset button. Purpose in Youth was about discovering who I was. It's the Bearded Man was about sharing who I was. For the next 2 years, I put out 2 podcasts per week. It was like clockwork. One episode with me sharing lessons, topics of interest, or perspectives. The second episode was with a guest talking about what they were an expert in. I was only able to juggle the podcast and working full time because we were living in a post-pandemic world working remote. I prioritized my role at Liquid IV always, and any spare or free time that I had, I was back to chipping away at my brand. All the time management lessons that I had learned driving Uber had stuck with me. Then in the fall of 2021, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, JT Barnett. He was an early adapter of TikTok and was encouraging me to get on the platform because of how much success he had seen. I thought to myself, let's dip our toes in and see what happens. First couple posts, crickets. It didn't seem like this platform or style of content was going to work for me. I kept testing concepts, and then one finally clicked. It was a vlog of me showing my morning routine. For some reason, it rubbed people the wrong way with how disciplined and dialed in I was. In a few short weeks, I went from 8,000 followers to 40,000 because of that one video. Ooh, I like this platform. Now I could see and taste what JT was talking about. This gave me the confidence to continue investing time and energy into the platform, and the ROI was proving to be worth my time. By the spring of 2022, I doubled my following to 80,000 people. What was so shocking was that I was finally being validated for everything that I had been preaching for the last 6 years. A morning routine podcast of mine would get 500 downloads. A morning routine TikTok would get 250,000 views. Same concepts, message, and intent. The only difference was the platform delivery. I finally felt like I had made it, that all the years of operating with nobody listening or watching was starting to change at a rapid pace. From then to now, I scaled my TikTok to 280,000 plus people and my Instagram to 92,000 people. Combined, that is 372,000 people. For all my Boston sports fans, the TD Garden seats roughly 20,000 people. With this community, I could fill it nearly 19 times. I've never done it for the numbers. If that were the case, I would have given up a long time ago. The success that I saw on the platform led to what I call chapter 3 of my creative career. I partnered with brands like Google, Hanes, RX Bar, Mack Weldon, Native, and more. I created digital products to help my community. Master Your Minute video course to help people dial in their weekly, daily, and monthly schedules. Destroy Your Distractions masterclass to help people eliminate distractions in their life so that they could stay on track. I created my one-on-one coaching program, Lost to Limitless, where I help people design their lifestyle to align with their priorities. I did this while still working a full-time career. How? By designing my lifestyle to align with my priorities. What is missing is all of the small in-between moments. It's easy to read or hear this and think, of course it happened like that. It makes sense. But I promise that while in it, during the day-to-day, it was all very unclear. One thing I know to be certain is that nobody understands how their life is going to play out ahead of time. You have to follow your heart, trust your intuition, and see what happens. The mindsets or characteristics that have allowed me to get to this point are the ability to keep going regardless of results, keeping a positive mindset always, having patience in the process and trusting that things will fall into place, being a giver without any expectation of getting something in return, always having an open mind, seeing others' success as examples of what is possible, always learning on a daily basis, prioritizing my mental, physical, and spiritual health before anything else, getting clear on what matters to me and eliminating everything else, being conscious of the people I spend the most time with, doing my best to enjoy the journey along the way. I promise I am no different than any of you. I made a choice years ago to create my own path. And I've put one foot in front of the other over the last 7+ years. What you're seeing from me today is the product of consistency and discipline. Simple, small daily decisions that aligned with me that have added up over time. I won't allow myself to live a life where I hate Mondays and count down the days till the weekend. Life is too short and beautiful to allow that to be my constant reality. I'm in the pursuit of creating a life where every day feels like a Saturday. I'm not quite there yet, but I can feel and taste it. I'm so close. I wish I could go back to that day sitting in the crowd at graduation and tell myself it's all going to be all right. Things work themselves out, and they always do. And if I can do it, so can you. Rooting for you always. Thank you for your time, attention, and energy today. If you'd like to support this show, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on. Post it to your IG story. Tag me at Bob A. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. You can also leave a review on Spotify. We are currently at 130 reviews at a 4.9 rating. Let's go. Or you can leave a review on iTunes. We are currently 95 reviews at a 4.8 rating. If you'd like to check out any of my digital courses or learn more about my coaching program, BobbyHobert.com. That is also linked up in the description below. With love and optimism, thank you for listening today.